Hello, everyone, and welcome back to English for Beginners, the podcast. I'm Jasmine, and I am joined today by my friend, Mark. How are you doing today, Mark?
I'm doing great, Jasmine. I'm really excited because today we're talking about the home. Specifically, we're looking at the things that make up a room, the floors, the walls, and the doors.
That's right. When you learn a language, you first learn the names of objects, but it is much more helpful to learn the verbs and expressions that go with them. Let's start with the ground. Mark, what do we often put on the floor to make it soft?
We use a carpet. Now, the first thing you need to do when you buy a house is lay a carpet. That means to put the carpet down on the floor so it covers the wood or the cold tile.
Exactly. And once you have it down, you have to keep it clean. You don't usually use a broom. Instead, you hoover the carpet. Hoover is a funny word, isn't it? It means to use a vacuum cleaner to suck up all the dust.
It is, but be careful, Jasmine, because if you drop red wine or mud on it, you might ruin a carpet. If it is ruined, it means it is destroyed or looks very bad, and you might have to buy a new one.
That is a nightmare, and even if you are careful, over many years a carpet wears. This means it becomes thin or old because so many people have walked on it. It just happens over time.
It does. Now, let's look up from the floor. Let's talk about the wall. Jasmine, if you move into a new house and the color is ugly, what do you do?
Well, I would paint a wall. I love bright colors. But before you paint, you have to know what kind of wall it is. Some houses have a thick wall, which is great for keeping the noise out, while others have a thin wall, where you can hear everything your neighbors are doing.
Very true. And we should distinguish between the wall's inside and an outside wall, which is the part of the house that faces the street or the garden. Speaking of gardens, sometimes a garden is surrounded by a wall to keep it private and safe.
I like that. It feels very cozy. Now, if I want to put up a shelf, I have to drill a hole in a wall. I use a power tool called a drill to make a small opening for a screw.
Just make sure you don't hit a pipe. Once the wall is ready, you can cover a wall with pictures. I have so many photos of my dog that my living room walls are completely covered.
That sounds adorable, Mark. I prefer art, so I like to hang a painting on the wall. And if I'm rearranging my furniture, I might push a chair against the wall to create more space in the middle of the room.
Walls can be different sizes, too. You might have a high wall that is very tall or a low wall that you can easily see over. But what about the part of the room that is above our heads, Jasmine?
That would be the ceiling. If you are very tall, you might be able to touch the ceiling with your hand. But for most of us, we just stare at the ceiling when we are lying in bed and can't sleep.
I do that often. And usually a light hangs from the ceiling in the center of the room. It's important to know if a room has a high ceiling, which makes it feel big and airy, or a low ceiling, which can make it feel a bit small and cramped.
Definitely. Now, the last thing on our list today is how we move between these rooms, the door. Mark, what is the most basic thing we do with a door?
Well, you open the door to go in, and you close or shut the door when you leave. But if you are very angry, you might slam the door. That means you close it very hard and it makes a loud noise.
Please don't slam the doors in my house, Mark. I prefer it when people knock on the door first to ask if they can come in. And at night, for safety, you must lock the door with a key.
Of course. In an emergency, like a fire, the police might have to break down the door to get inside, but we hope that never happens.
Agreed. Now, here's a polite expression. If someone is walking behind you with heavy bags, you should hold the door open for them. It's a very kind thing to do.
It really is. Now, when we talk about where a door goes, we say the door leads to the kitchen or the door leads to the bedroom. It's like a path.
And when you arrive at a house, you usually enter by the front door. You might stand outside a door for a moment while you look for your keys.
And then you hear a sound and realize there's someone at the door. It's probably a delivery person or a friend coming over for tea.
Well, Mark, I think we have covered a lot of great vocabulary for the home today. Our listeners now know all about carpets, walls, ceilings, and doors.
They certainly do. This has been English for Beginners, the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
That's a great idea, Mark. Let's keep going. Since our listeners are beginners, it helps to hear these words used in many different sentences. Let's go back to the floor and talk more about the carpet. Mark, imagine you are moving into a brand new apartment. What is the very first thing you do with the floor?
Well, if the floor is just cold concrete, I need to go to the store and buy a carpet. Then I have to hire someone to lay the carpet. It's a big job. You have to stretch it from one wall to the other wall so there are no bumps. If you don't lay the carpet correctly, people might trip and fall.
That's true. And once the carpet is down, you have to look after it. I have a cat, and sometimes my cat tries to ruin the carpet by scratching it with her claws. It makes me so sad when she starts to ruin the carpet, because carpets can be very expensive.
Oh, I understand. My dog is the same. But even if you don't have pets, a carpet doesn't stay new forever. In the hallway, where everyone walks every day, the carpet wears. You can see a little path where the colors are fading because the carpet wears down from all the shoes.
Exactly. And to keep the dust away, I hoover the carpet every Saturday morning. I like the sound of the machine when I hoover the carpet. It makes the room feel so fresh. Do you hoover the carpet often, Mark?
I try to hoover the carpet at least once a week. It's a good habit. Now, let's move back to the wall. You mentioned you like to paint a wall. What color would you choose for a bedroom?
I think a soft blue is nice. When you paint a wall blue, it feels very calm. But sometimes if you have a thick wall, it takes a long time for the paint to dry. A thick wall is usually made of heavy stone or brick.
That's interesting. In my apartment, I have a very thin wall between my kitchen and my bedroom. Because it is a thin wall, I can hear the refrigerator humming while I'm trying to sleep.
That sounds annoying. I prefer an outside wall to be very strong. The outside wall is what protects us from the rain and the wind. If the outside wall is not strong, the house will be cold.
Speaking of the outside, I saw a beautiful garden yesterday. The garden is surrounded by a wall made of old red bricks. Because the garden is surrounded by a wall, no one can see inside, and it is very peaceful.
I love gardens like that. Now, Mark, let's pretend I want to put up a clock. I need to drill a hole in a wall. Do I need a special tool to drill a hole in a wall?
Yes, you need an electric drill. You have to be very careful when you drill a hole in a wall because you don't want to make a mistake. Once you drill a hole in a wall, you can put a hook there.
And once the hook is there, I can hang a painting on the wall. I have a painting of the ocean that I want to hang on the wall in my living room. It looks much better than just a blank space.
I agree. Some people like to cover a wall with pictures of their family. If you cover a wall with pictures, it makes the house feel like a home. It's full of memories.
It really is. And if you have a high wall, you can put a very large bookshelf against it. But if you have a low wall, maybe just a small table is better. Sometimes I push a chair against the wall when I need to vacuum the middle of the floor.
That's a good tip. When you push a chair against the wall, it stays out of the way. Now, let's look up again. We talked about the ceiling. If a room has a high ceiling, does it stay cooler in the summer?
Yes, usually. A high ceiling allows the hot air to rise, but a low ceiling can make a room feel very warm and cozy in the winter. Some people don't like a low ceiling because they feel like they might touch the ceiling if they jump.
That's true. I am not tall enough to touch the ceiling, even if it is a low ceiling. But I do like to sit on my sofa and stare at the ceiling when I'm thinking about my day.
Me too. Usually when I stare at the ceiling, I notice the light. Most rooms have a light that hangs from the ceiling. If the light hangs from the ceiling, it brightens the whole room perfectly.
It does. Now let's talk more about the door. This is very important for beginners. Jasmine, if I arrive at your house, what is the first thing I do?
You should knock on the door. You use your hand to make a tap, tap, tap sound. When you knock on the door, I know you are there. Then I will open the door to let you in.
And after I walk inside, I should close the door or shut the door so the cat doesn't run out.
It is polite to close the door quietly. You should never slam the door.
Oh, I agree. If you slam the door, it makes a very loud bang, and it might wake up the neighbors. Only angry people slam the door.
That's true. And before you go to bed at night, you must lock the door. You turn the key so the door cannot be opened from the outside. When you lock the door, you feel safe.
Exactly. Now, what if you lose your key? Someone might have to break down the door. That means using force to push the door open. It's very loud and messy when you have to break down the door.
Let's hope we never have to do that. Now, let's practice some expressions. If I'm carrying a big box, would you hold the door open for me?
Of course, I would hold the door open so you can walk through easily without dropping your box. It is always good manners to hold the door open for others.
Thank you, Jasmine. Now, let's talk about where doors go. In my house, the door leads to the kitchen. So if I walk through that door, I am in the place where I cook. Where does your hallway door lead to?
My hallway door leads to the balcony. It's a very nice view. When guests come over, they usually enter by the front door. They don't go to the back. They enter by the front door because that is the main entrance.
That makes sense. Sometimes if I am early for a meeting, I have to stand outside a door and wait. I don't want to go in too early, so I just stand outside a door for a few minutes.
And if I'm inside and I hear a noise, I might say, "Mark, there's someone at the door." That means I think a person is waiting to come in.
This is great, Jasmine. Let's do a quick review for our listeners of English for Beginners, the podcast. I will say a word and you give me a sentence.
I'm ready.
The word is carpet.
Okay. I need to hoover the carpet because it is getting a bit dirty.
Excellent. Now the word is wall.
I want to paint a wall green to make my living room look like a forest.
I like that. How about ceiling?
The light hangs from the ceiling right above the dining table.
Perfect. And the last one is door.
Please lock the door when you leave the house so everything stays safe.
You are a great teacher, Jasmine. Our listeners are going to learn so much.
Thanks, Mark. It's all about practice. The more you say these sentences, the easier they become. Don't just learn the word door. Learn to say open the door and lock the door.
That's the best way to learn. Well, I think that is all the time we have for this episode of English for Beginners, the podcast.
Yes, it is. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We hope you enjoyed learning about the parts of a room with us.
See you next time.
Goodbye.